Okay, that's fine. All right. Well, I'm going to be sipping on my coffee until I get this down here.
Sip away.
We had a great class last time. I was talking to Anne-Marie after, and well, seeing Anne-Marie here. There she is, hiding in the back there.
Kristen White.
I am not the only instructor here. Anne-Marie also can answer all your questions.
No, I'm having so much fun listening to you. It's great.
Anyway, we were lucky enough. If you have perfect hives with no problems, you don't learn anything. That's textbook, okay? So I always am appreciative when the beekeeper offers us some learning experiences. And Mike was generous enough to offer us
to be negligent for part of the year. So
no,
yeah.
and not just that. So let me just do the feelings. Anne-Marie and I are talking about this afterwards. About the question that when we were before the last group, I asked Mike questions about what led to the situation in his hive, and Anne-Marie chimed in, and we realized afterwards we had just bombarded him with all the questions that anybody from VIP or me would ask somebody to do the CSI. Okay, what led to this? How did this all happen? So I think maybe like a little brief review right now would be worthwhile. So I don't know what we're going to see right here. So we opened up a hive that looked in decent shape. It had a moderate sized cluster, not as big as the first hive had a big cluster. The second one had a little smaller cluster. We looked down in the hive and there was plenty of bee bread stored. The colony was in good nutrition, still had some drones in the colony. And then I looked at and there's some emerging brood, no young brood, but emerging brood. So the bees that were emerging were going to be the last bees going into the winter cluster that would be your winter bees. Okay, so the question is, right now, as a beekeeper, you're trying to get the bees ready to go into winter. So what we saw was a colony that had good nourishment, obviously had a bunch of bee brood that had just emerged, and it was going to the winter. But then what I saw was a few bees with deformed wing virus. And then when we looked closely at that emerging brood, we saw some of the pupae being chewed out. No signs of PMS yet, but clearly pupa being chewed out, which we typically call Varroa sensitive hygiene, but it was some kind of hygienic behavior of brood that had not yet died, which is different than just plain hygiene, where you have bees that are chewing out the pupae before they die. And by not yet dying, you can tell by whether there's melanization of the tissue. So if the tissue is pure white, that means that was a live pupa that they're chewing out, as opposed to a diseased pupa that is melanized and dying. So then we asked questions leading up to that. So the first question is, what was your last? First, have you done a mite wash recently? And he hadn't done a mite wash recently. The last one he had done in July. Was it early July or mid-July?
It was the end of June on that hive.
Okay,
Some of these were done July, like 24th.
Okay, but that one we were looking at. Okay. So early July, he did a mite treatment at that time, and so then we immediately said, well, what was your mite treatment? Well, formic acid. Next question is, how did you apply the formic acid? Did a formic flash on the top? How much formic acid did you apply? So 85 milliliters on the top of the hive. So that is a very strong treatment, which typically we get very good mite control with hot weather like that. You also will probably knock out some queens with that much. I didn't ask him whether he lost a queen or not, but you would expect that to do a pretty good mite control. And he hadn't done any since then. So now let's do a CSI on that. We have a colony that early July had the mites, we will assume, because he didn't check back afterwards, which is okay, probably a very good mite control. Why might we be seeing a fairly high mite level? A possibility. We haven't done the mite wash yet. Or I don't know if we had. We did a mite wash. We'd gotten 15 mites in an alcohol wash, which is a moderately high, just on the edge of concern for going into the winter. So not one I would bank on to sign a contract for pollination that I would assume is going to make it through the winter, but not one that I would bet money is going to die either. It's right on that edge right there. But the question is, how did that mite count came up? Well, the last mite control was the 1st of July. We had a fair-sized cluster and good nutrition, and we still had drones, which indicated there was good nutrition between then and now, and it reared a bunch of drones. So it had all the month of July, all the month of August, and most of the month of September to be rearing brood, and the mite population will roughly double once a month under good conditions like that. So it doubles once a month, at the end of 3 months, how many times higher is the mite count calculation than the starting?
Yeah, two. Doubles, you said?
Doubles once a month, 3 months.
Oh, so that's 2.
Anybody know about exponents?
Yeah.
What's 2 to the third power?
Yeah.
32.
Oh, 2 to the third power?
Yeah.
You were laughing.
2 to the third power?
Yeah. Yes, 8. So it would be 8 times the ending mite count because the oxalic acid or the formic acid flash treatment is an overnight treatment, and the queen starts laying the next day, which means that mite can start reducing. So we'd expect 8 times the ending mite count by this time of season. So there was a long span for the mites to build up. Now he will, the last of the broods emerging, so he can start giving them an oxalic treatment in a few more days when the last of that broods emerged. He can get the mite level down, but then the question is we saw bees with deforming virus and some being chewed out. So how the problem's not the mites. Now's the problem. There's not any more new brood being made. So whatever he's got, that's what's going to go into the winter. Since there were bees with deforming virus, we can assume that deforming virus is fairly rampant at some point in the colony. So that's where we stand now. What, as beekeepers, what best managed practices could he have done that would improve the prognosis of this hive? What, between the last treatment and today, what could he have done?
We talked yesterday about the timing of the treatment.
If you were giving him a recommendation, he said, what could I have done better? What would you say? Put yourself in his shoes right now. Answer the question. Mike's asking, what could he have done better?
I think he could have done a alcohol wash to see the mite level going.
At what time?
He did it in June, I would say end of July, beginning of August.
Okay, very good. That would be one thing, is that, August is your, middle August that's your key window. You want to get your mites down by the end of August, so that from September on, you can rear a healthy generation of brood with very few mites and very little deformed wing virus. So do an assessment. If he still was at a 0 or a 1 level, middle August, he could have skipped it. If he saw the mites starting coming up, that would have been an appropriate time to do some other treatment. A thymol treatment would have been appropriate at that time. Could have done a formic, oxalic. Not so much because there's a lot of brood at that time. Hop guard treatment, that would be your options at that time. So if you would have done a mid-August mite treatment, then he would not be facing the question now of the health of this colony. That make sense? Okay.
Checking for doing a mite wash also after your treatment. It's always a good idea because you can't assume that these treatments always work under every condition. So personally, I would always check to make sure that I do have a decrease in mite after I have performed a treatment of any sort.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look in a hive here. Let me check. In cold weather, this is miserable conditions for doing a bee inspection. How many of you are first-year beekeepers here? Okay, so don't ever work bees in conditions like this if you can help it. The colonies are much more defensive. The foragers are all in the hive. And what you want to do is make sure you have a smoker that is putting out copious quantities of cool white smoke. Remember those 3 words: cool, white, copious, cool, white smoke. So it's not going to be hot here, but it's white. If it's coming out gray, that's not going to be enough smoke on a day like this. You always want to use white smoke. So anytime my smoker, when I puff it, if it goes to gray smoke, I will stop everything I'm doing and get the smoker working right. You cannot light it from the top. You have to light it from the bottom or add more fuel. Figure out why it's not white smoke. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go down the front of these hives. If you guys want to come around to this side, just take a look right now. And let's do an assessment of these hives right now. So we got 4 hives right here. How many do you think look healthy? And tell me why. How many look healthy? Let's get a number. 3. And what's the indication?
4. One's getting robbed.
One's getting robbed, and there's dead bees, which tells that's probably not a healthy hive. Okay, it's probably got a weakened hive due to some reason. We don't know the reason yet, but it's getting robbed out by yellow jackets, so that's probably not a healthy hive. Okay, look at the rest. We don't see dead bees in front, so we're probably doing okay. Now, if it was a warm, sunny day, we would assess the foragers coming and going from the hive. if we had healthy forager flight and there's a pollen vector and pollen flow, we'd expect to see pollen coming back into the colony where queen light, the demand for pollen would cause the foragers to seek out pollen. We'd also look at the abdomens of the foragers coming back and seeing when they fly out, you look at the size of the abdomen, how big their abdomens are full of nectar for the outgoing flight for fuel, and the size of the abdomens coming back. And if they're coming back with larger abdomens, then they probably have a nectar flow on. The colony's probably gaining weight. They're probably doing quite well and will be less defensive because it's got a nectar flow on. So that would be the assessment. We can't see all that. Other things you can look for. You look for crawlers, which would indicate nosema. In the springtime, look in the front of the hive and look for dead virgin queens. If there's a dead virgin queen, what happened?
They've kicked her out. They've made a new one, maybe.
Yeah, they made some new ones and kicked
Or
out
they
the old
were
ones.
a swarm and they fought to the death and they took the honeys and the losers out.
Right, the colony swarm. The short answer is the colony swarm. If there's a dead virgin queen in front of a hive, the colony swarm. And mother and daughter queens don't normally fight. Sister queens always fight to death. So the sisters will fight to death. So if you see a dead virgin queen in the springtime, then and I'll do this sometimes. I'll walk into a yard and I'll just walk down and I'll say, this colony's queen, right? This colony's queenless. This is a newly installed package. This colony just swarmed. This colony has this. And they go, how the hell can you do all that? You can learn a lot from the front of the hives before you ever even open the hive, okay? Okay? Why would we bother to open a hive today, other than demonstrating to you how to do a colony inspection, which is the main thing. I'm going to show you how to handle bees.
See if it's ready for winter.
Wintertime.
See if it's ready for winter. So what are we going to look for?
Winter bees and
What's the number one thing to look for? You got it.
resources.
First, we look for honey stores. So this hive right now, I'm going to check for honey stores. Just barely adequate. Okay, end of inspection. Okay, we already answered that question right there, okay? Just a simple heft will tell you whether it's heavy enough or not. So that colony's not going to starve soon, but that colony will be hungry before the end of springtime. Okay, you get very easily starve in March. I lifted it.
But I mean, what were you feeling for?
Weight.
How heavy?
I went 65 pounds, which means the colony's 130 pounds. Okay. So what are you looking for now?
Signs of disease so you know how to treat them?
Okay, so you're looking at signs of disease, which means we have to look at what kind of frames?
Brood
Honey
frame.
frames, pollen frames, or brood frames?
Brood.
So we're going to have to look at a brood frame for signs of disease. Other than that, what else are we going to look for? We want to know if the colony has one particular type of bee in there, a queen. We're going to look for queenlessness, okay? And where are we going to look for that? In a brood frame also. So brood frame is going to answer those two questions for the disease, brood disease and queens. And then what's the other main thing that we're concerned about now? It has to do with a positive sense, a single strand
Mites.
RNA
Varroa mites.
virus.
Virus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And the vector of the virus, which is the Varroa mite. So we're going to look at mite level and see whether deforming virus is rampant in the hive. So those are the main things. Those will also have to be from a brood frame. Do we now have a plan of attack? Okay. We know what we're looking for. We're not going to get distracted by other things, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Want it back?
Okay. The first thing I do, one puff of smoke. Okay. How well did that smoke work in that hive?
Didn't go in very much.
It didn't go in. The bees blew it right back out.
Yeah.
Okay. So was it very effective? No. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to wash this smoke. Does it come back out?
Yep.
And that one mostly sucked back in.
Yep.
Okay. So as you go down, you watch where your smoke goes. I see people who come in and they do this in front of the hive, and you see tons of smoke in the air. And it makes for a great show, but it doesn't do anything inside the bee. Okay? So I'm going to just check right here. Okay, so at the exit side on the right, so there's one in the middle. And that one just sucked right in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very quick. Notice that when I come in here, I don't go bang with the smoker against the entrance. You don't want to give them that jolt to get them on edge to start with. Okay, so now we smoke it. Let me stand right here. Okay. Now, this hive design here on this pallet. There are issues with that. Okay. So who can tell me one of the issues right now with this pallet?
Level.
It's not level.
Well, you want it level. You want to point it not level, point it forward. So that's fine.
The airflow.
Not very high.
What are
off the
there's two
ground.
problems, two major problems I see right. What are two major problems right here?
It's all on the same base.
I'm serious. What's the problem with that?
When you work one, the other ones are going to feel it.
And the vibration goes right through there. So as soon as you touch one hive, all of them feel the vibration. Okay. Second problem is it's very awkward to work this hive, because you can't stand sideways and their ergonomics on. You have to work with a twisted body and pull frames out, twist it, and turn them around. So I prefer having the hives in groups of 2 as opposed to close together, for the ease of work.
Hey, Randy, you might want to mention that we're all blocking the entrance because we can spot you guys.
Yeah. At this point, once you guys now, you can move to the back of the hive. Hives.
These guys are trying to do a good job here. Wish we had.
This is the perfect height.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. They,
Well, actually, for the bees, the perfect height would be about 15 feet higher.
Okay.
Okay. For humans, you think it's too high or too low?
I was thinking it's a little too low.
Too low. Okay. So when you're picking up a 90-pound super of honey, you like to have it starting up here?
No. No.
What height do you want it at?
I want it like,
When you're picking up a 90-pound super of honey, where do you want it at?
I want that low.
Put your hands right there again. So the super honey would be right here, so it's perfect height.
Okay. I'm gonna lower
Right?
my
You just demonstrated
Yeah.
the answer to your question. Okay. Okay. So this is just the right height. I like to have 2 8/8/16 cinder blocks on their side, flat side down. The front one a little lower, the back one, or you shim it, and a hive sitting on those. That makes the easiest hive stand of all. Okay. So we've got a little cup of smoke. As soon as I open the lid up, we're going to lay this down. And then you want to put your lid down. First look for queens on it, and then put it down behind to the side of the hive. Don't do anything to change the front of the hive. That will alarm the incoming foragers, telling them there's something wrong with the hive. We'll take a look
out
at
of the drip pattern.
Certainly. Okay, so I'm not seeing any defensiveness right here, so now I can go in later. The yellow jackets are clearly very interested in these hives. Okay, nice propolis seal. That's really big. Point. If I can pull this off and there's no propolis seal, this colony's toast. There's a problem with this colony. Any healthy colony will always have a strong propolis seal this time of year. So I remember talking to commercial beekeepers during CCD, and Marie,
Yes.
and Hackenberg being one of them. They said, God, we don't understand it with CCD. We go out to their hives and there's no propolis seal on the lids. I said, yeah, well that's basic beekeeping. If you don't have a tight propolis seal, that means there's something wrong with that colony in general. If you have a strong propolis seal, it's usually a healthy colony. So that's your first sign right there.
Can I ask a question about that?
Of course.
How long does it take them to make that propolis seal? Sometimes I worry that if I inspect too late, they won't have time to redo it before the winter.
Yeah, what we try to do is to push down hard on the seal, so it'll seal back in there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now I use the lid to direct the smoke down between the frames. So when I open anything, I always use that lid to direct the smoke down. Pick this up, and again, we're going to take a look for the queen. Queen is not normally on a lid, but from time to time she is. That's the way to, when you spend 3 hours looking for the queen in here, she's sitting over on the lid. You feel it really dumb afterwards. Okay, so take a look right here. What we see, here, let's move this back here out of the way for you guys. Come on, take a look at these top bars right here. Okay, how full is this hive full of honey? How many frames have very little honey in them?
This one's little.
Yeah, look at these 2 frames. Very little honey in these. You look from the top, don't look down there. They're not filled out with honey. How big is the cluster? Pretty small in this box. We've got a very small cluster here. And they are clustering, they're not disjointed, so it means it probably has a queen, but it is a small cluster in this hive, not a particularly strong hive. I already told, by the heft I could already tell that it wasn't pretty heavy, so I'm not surprised there. Okay, so let's go ahead.
Randy, tell them how when you see that there's a cluster, that means something about the queen, and when the cluster is like not really, it's all over the place.
Right, yes. If you have a cluster, a colony is usually queen, right? Queenless
Get rid of the
colony,
yellow jacket.
the bees tend to just spread out around and they don't have that firm cluster. Plus with a queenless colony, a puff of smoke like that, you will hear a roar of bees' wings after that called the queenless roar. Typically, most of the time that will happen. Okay, so then we also had some discussion. Ideally, you will start with an outer frame so you have less chance of hitting the queen. Once you get proficient at this, I just go right to the center. So let me do a demonstration for you guys first. I'm going to start with an outer frame here, and it's hard on a day like this. And I like to hold my hive tool this way for a prying action. You have much more control here. Then you turn it around. Notice that? A little break of the propolis right here. And then to lift it, grab it right here, and then press your middle fingers down and press with the back of your middle fingers. If I just grab this here and try to do this propolis seal, all the lifting is done with these lower back muscles, and you strain your lower back. This one right here is this muscle right here. Okay, the muscle that extends the middle finger. And right here, I'll break that propel seal. Now I can lift very easily, okay? That will save your back. As I lift, I immediately put my middle finger underneath here, so if a bee gets under my fingers, I can let go and I don't drop the frame. You can do this, okay? I slowly lift this up and put this frame aside. Not much honey in that frame, right? Okay. But we can tell that by looking from the top. When you pull that first frame out, and notice when I smoke her, I always do a puff first to make sure I'm going to have white smoke, okay? One puff right down in this area. That's a very big trick for your first frame coming out. Now, I'm not really interested in these two frames. These two frames are going to be honey frames. So I'm going to move these together, not one at a time, but I'll move 6 frames together at one time if necessary. Oh, I was going to show you one other thing. Okay, let's just say you're right here, and people want this J-shaped hive tools, okay? They say it's too hard getting in here with the gloves on, okay? To grab it, you just grab a frame right here. Oh, what's the deal? Hang up here. You take your hive tool in the middle right here and lift your frame right out. Okay, you don't need a J hook, you don't need anything else, frame grip, you just snag it right in the middle. You have to eyeball the center of it for it balances and just pick the frame and pick it right out, okay? Okay, so this is a honey frame, as I expected. Now, what I'm going to do, let me go back to where I was. I don't want to move frames one at a time. Every time you make a space and close it, there's a chance of the queen running around the side getting crushed. So if I want to go to the middle, I'm just going to go grab 3 frames right here, and I'll take my hive tool like this, and see how I put my hive tool down? That way, I can move 3 frames, 4 frames, 6 frames at a time. I do the minimal amount of spacing, opening and closing in the hive as possible. And now I've gotten to the middle. Looking down, I can see this is a brood frame. Kind of surprising there's brood up here for this week of colony. Okay, push down my middle finger, pick this up. Slow on the pickup. The first frame out, very slow until the bottom bar has completely cleared the hive, the other frames. Beginners typically they go slow and then they get tired right here and they go whoosh, and they whip that last bit out and they rub all the bees and that queen running down off the bottom here, and they don't understand why they kill so many queens. Okay, wow, what a different colony from the other two we have. This one is actively brood rearing. We got eggs all in a band around here, and we have larvae up to 3rd instar larvae right in the middle.
What's that, queen cell or queen cup?
Yeah, it's just a queen cup. And they're not going to be rearing a queen in here right now. If we take a look inside, here we'll see.
Why don't you explain the difference between queen cups and queen cells? Because that's
Right, okay.
very nerve-wracking for beginning beekeepers.
Okay, so an emergency queen cell is a larva that is floated up from a worker cell, and then they build its cell aiming down. A queen cup is instead of being a horizontal cell, is a vertical cell started as a cup right here, already facing down. And those are, colonies typically put those in there, doesn't mean a dang thing. Some, like Russians, put a ton of those in there. And they may start ton of supersedure or swarm cells and tear them back down. So unless there's a jelly and a larva in there, you got nothing to be concerned about. If they are making supersedure cells, the bees are telling you there's something they don't like about that queen, and I just let them go ahead and make them. Okay, so this is very interesting here to see this. So let's do a little more inspection right here. Move these bees out of the way. Now, can you guys all see these larvae right here? Mm-hmm. See how all those larvae are exactly the same age? Mm-hmm. And then the nice progression of age going down smoothly all the way down to the eggs down here.
Could you just tilt it one way and then the other so we could see in? Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Okay. You see what I'm talking about? Okay, what that's telling me is our rate of larval survival. And right here, our rate of larval survival looks like 100%. That's good. That means we're not seeing any brood diseases, okay? If instead we saw larvae of different ages side by side, that meant that some larvae were dying and the queen is coming back and laying an egg and they're starting it over again. So you may have a larva in every cell, but because they're different ages scattered, that means you would have signs of brood disease. This shows very healthy looking brood. Even though it's not even sealed, we have 100% larval survival going on right there. And right there, that's almost end of inspection for me. The only things we haven't determined yet is the varroa level in this hive. But we've already determined that this colony is queenless, does not have enough honey, and doesn't have any brood disease. Okay, so we have five things on our list.
How do you know it's
Why is it queenless?
I'm sorry, queen right.
Queen right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
your headache?
I don't know where that came from. Queen right, thank you. No, we see eggs in your larvae. This is clearly a queen right colony. I don't know where that came from.
That's fast, right?
Yeah.
We're
Good.
sure we were
No,
less
good.
gassy.
Passed.
Okay, so we're going to look over here. And here's some more sealed brood emerging out. No sign of any problems in this hive. Everybody looks just fine. Nice non-defensive colony. Mike's got some very nice bees. You all see the queen?
No.
She's the large one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, there's a large one there.
Yeah. The other thing is, you guys stop.
Oh, sorry.
Never point the queen with gloves on,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
because your finger is an inch longer than you are used to, and I see queens several times get killed by an enthusiastic beginner pointing out the queen, not accounting for the extra length of their glove, and they're so embarrassed. I'm trying to save you from embarrassment.
Can you point to
Okay.
her?
You killed
While he's embarrassing you.
She went on the other side.
Just while he's just embarrassing.
She's on the other side.
Yeah,
Okay.
she just went on to the other
Okay.
side.
Okay. Okay. Now,
She's down in the back corner.
the queen is very easy to see in the first few seconds, and then she gets much, much harder to find. You've got about 3 seconds at a side to see the queen, and then if I have to look back, she's
going
way
back to that
much
bottom. Now
harder,
she's coming
harder to
back
find.
down.
Yeah. So yeah.
I won't point.
Well, you guys can see now. But when you're enthusiastic with gloves on and you're not used to wearing gloves, it's really easy to kill the queen in that enthusiastic point. Okay, now since we've seen the queen, that means this is a really good way to protect her from her getting into alcohol. By putting her to the side and making a gap here. Now that means that any of these frames I can do an alcohol wash. I don't even have to look for the queen. Okay.
So can I ask a question?
Because I was getting a picture of Mike's face when he saw the queen drown in alcohol.
So can I,
This time of
was
year
there
it's great.
any-
That's
that's just a normal sort of brood configuration for this time of year? There's so little of it?
Yeah, in fact, the other two colonies, we saw no open brood or egg laying
Okay,
at all. They were
okay.
shutting down.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. This colony, very different from the other two colonies we opened in the last session, that had no young brood at all, only sealed brood. They were at the end of their brood ring. So this colony actually those bees are going to be, that's going to be the winter bees.
Run on the
This
bottom.
late brood ring is actually a good thing to see to get those emerging bees while there's still a nice pollen flow on, which will be good bees to go
Now,
into the
are
winter.
they, when they go from the brood all being there, maybe in August,
Yeah.
to this point, is there a point in between where they're going to kind of look like that pattern you showed for the American foul brood, spotted thing?
The spotty, it depends on whether you have good pollen flow.
Okay.
So if you have decent pollen, no, they have adequate nutrition. Where I live, we typically have no pollen coming in at that time.
So it won't look like that and not be American foul brood, is what I'm saying. Like as they're moving from all hatching out to the point where there's none, does it get spotty looking? If I were to pull it up in between.
Spottiness is first thing you're going to suspect is poor nutrition.
Okay.
By poor nutrition,
Always.
and there's nothing wrong with that. In August, we want to see that. We want to see them shut down the brood ring. The workers follow behind the queen, eating the eggs. Eating most of the eggs. You're going to see a spotty brood pattern.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But you also do want to look and make sure you don't have larvae dying. So then you can look at your proportion of live to dead larvae side by side.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do here now is pick this up, and we're going to now ethical consideration. I forgot about this. I need 315 bees to volunteer to sacrifice themselves for the good of the colony. Ready? Okay. So now we've given them a chance to remove themselves if they don't want to volunteer for that job. We can flip them in here. Do we have to look for the queen? Nope. No, we already know the.
You talked for so long. I was already dead.
She is not going to cross that gap. So normally I would shake these, put these into a single level, and then the queen will stand out very easily. Now, what we're doing, we're separating these bees behaviorally from old bees from young bees. Younger bees have a higher proportion of mites on their bodies. That's what we want to check. And then these bees right here, the test is to see if they sting when you pick them up. These are nice young bees, okay? They'll very easy test. Anybody else want to put out a hand? No? Okay.
My EpiPen's in my
I'll tell you right now. doing this is, I do it for all my beginners class, and after the first person does, usually everybody wants to have a handful of bees, and it just changes your whole perception of what a colony inspection is all about.
Oh, that's so cool. Can I?
One of those tricks like this. Oh, what I tell you.
You're gonna do it? Good.
Good job, Randy.
No, make sure your sleeve is tight.
Oh yeah, she's gonna black.
You got to have your sleeve tight, and you got to be right here. So you have to pull your sleeve up. Otherwise, you don't want the bee gets inside your sleeve, you can have a problem. Anyway, the point is here, and there are tricks for this demonstration. I will fill you in. Don't do this without learning some tricks, okay?
Got it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Sleight of
Yeah,
hand.
one snap. There you go. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to get, we have just barely our 300 bees here. So when I'm going to wipe off the outside, level it off, level. We don't want to get too many bees, so we want just the right amount. And yes, we will need some more alcohol in here. And these guys can go back in. We can put that out of the way so it trips over. That'd be great. Ready? Yeah. Good shot. More. We got a little more. Or more. We want to have those bees covered. Okay, great. Okay, now what you want to do is the proper action for this washer is about 300 RPM. This is about 300 RPM right here. 300 RPM will just make a little wave going around like this, and about this much offset. You want about it's a 6 millimeter offset is what we found is works just right. That's a little more than 1/4 inch offset on the bush. It's a tough one. I would choose a brighter color because black is fairly common, especially on a queen where the bees have removed the hairs off her thorax.
Well, I've seen some on this side, and some of it is like black.
Yeah. So
some of the bees they have like black on their
right,
head.
and that's why beekeepers do not use black for the color of our queens because it does not stand out that well. We use different colors.
We'll talk to
instead.
Randy about that later.
Okay, so what you want to do is a good full minute or more. If, the best I can get with at 60 seconds is 65 or 95% mite recovery, but that's with the machine doing this action just right. So a good full minute. Now, if you want to get like scientific data, for checking for alcohol wash count, for to see if your colony's okay for the winter, this is adequate now. So now we'll go ahead and we'll open this up.
Do you want to close your colony first?
Yeah, we can take a look. Pass this around while I'm doing this. And Mike, mite treatment. When was the last mite treatment?
Same story.
Same story.
These were all treated at the same time.
Okay.
So middle of July-ish.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is. Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm going to let this pass. I'll pass this around as I go into this colony some more, and let's get a. Now I forgot what number I have. There we go. Okay, knock that loose. Okay.
You're counting total number of mites.
Yeah. And keep that number in your head. We'll compare.
Oh, you can say it out loud. Because, and do not assume that anybody who says the number is anywhere near the actual number. So you can say it out loud if you can find it out. And what I'm watching for faces. See, there's a few faces starting to look at me. No, not really. So if they're not looking at you, they're unaware of you. If they're unaware of you, you're not going to have any colony defensive response.
And we're going after the yellow jackets.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're busy.
11 or 12.
Wait, that's what's an OR number? Okay, so there's really no reason to go any lower in this hive. We've now answered all the questions we started with, so colony inspection can be done on this.
Brenda, you want to mention you're making sure that your frames are
Oh, God, thank you. God, I got to bring you along more often. Okay, when you're done, what you want to do is make sure you have a gap. The total gap here between the two should be a total 3/4 inch. So we got 3/8 of an inch on each side right here, a little more on that side. If you're going to do it, put your hive tool down like this. If you pry right here, you tend to blow this staple out of the box. Okay, if you put your hive tool down here, you can bend that hive tool, get it really good. You can actually do this hard enough to break a plastic frame, I've heard.
We have video proof.
You have video proof of that, right?
For everybody else, he did it in the first session. That's why we're all in.
And it's easier when it's hot weather. When it's cold, it's hard to press that propolis. Now what we have, at any point in time, I can always take the total sum of this and get that much gap on either side. If you don't pry your frames together closely every single time, the bees will put propolis between the end bars, and pretty soon you have no wiggle room to get that first frame out. It's a pain in the butt to get into the brood chambers. I always run 10 frames in the brood chambers. They're designed for a perfect bee space, 10 frames per chamber, not 9 frames. Just always squeeze your frames back together. Okay, so now what we're going to do is let's close this hive up. How are we doing? I'm not hearing counts.
I saw 15.
15? And we heard 11, 12, okay.
I got 13.
You got 13?
Lucky 13.
Well, I usually read.
Yeah. Okay, now watch this here. When I slide past, pushing the bees out of the way, and then come back, push the bees out of the way, you can put it down without crushing any bees. Okay? Okay, we'll get one more count, and then we'll get our definitive count from the VIP team.
If you're gonna go into another one, can I'm curious as to what's going on.
Oh, we'll get you that one.
Oh my goodness, look at all the cluster now.
Oh,
I know,
yeah.
they're all up here. Yeah.
Okay, so what we want to do here, we want to keep these bees from clustering.
Because they're just gonna die in the cold.
So we want to disturb them until they warm up their wing muscles.
That's a good demo, thank you.
Is that temperature dependent?
Yeah, temperature dependent. Okay, why don't you start getting them active here, and then we're going to encourage them to start flying.
And
you
for
know,
those
you
of
don't
us in
have to
black
be
jackets and no
terrified
bee suit,
of bees. They can fall all over you, walking up your ear and everything like that. They're not going to sting me, okay? Understand when bees are going to sting you and when they're not going to sting you.
Like that,
and
when
then
I
you
crush
can
them in my
relax working
pocket?
around bees and make it look like it's the easiest thing in the world. Okay?
Oh wait, there's one
Okay,
right
how's
here.
that mic
yeah,
count
just,
now? What are we up
you
to?
got me.
What's the highest
Oh.
count we've gotten?
There it is.
I did 15.
You did 15. What's the
Can you
lowest count we
pull
got?
Can you pull that stinger out of my
11.
finger?
Okay.
Plus you got one extra in the remaining wash.
Oh no shit. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Let's where's our VIP final count right here? There you go.
Here, see?
See if you came up the same count as I did.
VIP.
Thank you.
I got 10.
I got 10.
Yeah, we thought they got
But I do want to point out something. Yes.
One in there.
Yes.
So I don't like to use this particular device because there's only one count. I like to rewash my bees, and just as a as a little test here, I looked at what you got in here. There's one more mite in here again. So you would add this, but I would rewash all these bees because sometimes the mites get stuck. Because when the alcohol falls off, then they get stuck onto the bees and they don't necessarily get out of there.
And I find that this device does not recover anywhere near as well as the cups that I use, the one that's on my website with the,
I agree.
the solo cups. Okay, let me go over to this one here.
So it's 10
Oh, okay,
there,
I got it. So let's-
and then 1 in here. So that's 11.